Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad everyone stopped by today because today we are going to be doing another really fun project. Today I'm going to be doing a phoenix. Now I didn't want to go with a normal fire phoenix, so I decided to pick a different element to base it off of. So we're going to be doing an ice phoenix. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is work on cutting out all the fabric for our phoenix. Right now I have the pattern drawn out. It's a very simple pattern. You wouldn't believe it, but if you're doing a bird character, just doing a skinny chicken kind of drawing will actually work really well. So it looks really funny right now, but this is really all you need to make a bird type character. And then these two pieces are for the top and the bottom of the bird. I've got the chest piece down here, and then this part is going to be the top part that connects the wings together. Okay, so here's the fabric for our main body. You can see I cut a little section and I wanted to do a darker blue, and then the rest of the body and the neck are going to be a lighter blue. And then these are the other extra pieces you'll need. I've got the belly piece over here. I picked a teal for it. I have the top part that's going to go above the wings right here. I picked the blue to go along with the part that's going to be the middle of the belly. And then I've got the inside parts of the legs right here. So the first sewing that I did was I connected all of the body pieces for the sides. And then I sewed the front half of the leg together. So you can see these two pieces are together. So the only thing I need to do next is to sew the belly piece and connect everything together. So now we're going to move on to making the wings. For the wings, I'm going to be using layers of felt to create a feathering effect. These are all the different colors that I want to use. To do this, I drew out a bunch of different patterns and I tried layering them until I found the layers that I liked, and then I cut out the felt to work with. So I'm going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue everything together in a nice layer. I also had a few extra pieces that I cut out because I wanted to make a nice decorative piece on the chest of the phoenix. So this is what I'm doing right now. For the wings, I divided the pattern into two different pieces, so when we put it together I have a little joint where the felt isn't connected, so we can actually bend the wings. So this part is towards more of the body, and then we'll work on the tips. Next, we're going to start on the clay. The clay I'm using for this piece is going to be original Sculpey. You could try other clays. I don't recommend air dry clays because they're very fragile, but if you wanted to go a little bit nicer, you could do Sculpey Firm. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's stronger than normal Sculpey. Now for my phoenix, I want to have its mouth open, kind of like it's screeching. So I'm going to be building up clay on the bottom and the top of the face to create the beak. Once I have the layout of the mouth finished, I'm going to start working on the details inside of it, adding the tongue and a few different textures. Once I was happy with the beak, I moved on to adding the eyes. Now I have a resin gem that I want to add to the forehead, but I don't trust baking it. It's a type of plastic and I highly recommend don't bake plastics. They will release horrible chemicals into the air and they're probably toxic. So what I'm going to do to avoid that is I'm going to push my gem into the forehead and then pull it out. It'll leave a nice indentation and then I just won't sculpt that spot. So after the clay is baked, I can push the gem in and glue it into place. Once I have the details to where I like it, the only thing I really need to do is add a feathering detail to the face. So I'm going to take a semi-sharp tool and I'm going to scratch in different textures to add a feathering effect. Now we're going to move on to the feet for the Phoenix. Now the feet are a main support for the piece, so you want to have a good wiring system set up, that way it can hold the weight of the piece. So I've drawn out a basic shape of how I want my foot. I'm going to have 3 toes in the front and 1 little claw in the back. So I'm going to take some wire that's measured out to the right length that I have drawn out, and I'm going to bend it into the shape that I need. For the extra 2 toes in the front, you'll just need a strip of wire. You'll bend it in half and shape it to where you can connect it to the front. The wire I'm using for this is a 14 gauge galvanized steel wire. I usually get this at the hardware store. And then I'm going to be using a 20 gauge. You can use a little bit thinner or larger, but I usually use 20 gauge. And I'm going to use that to connect all the pieces together. Once the wire frame is all finished for the feet, I'm going to be adding clay to the tips of the toes to make the claws. After the claws are completely sculpted, you'll end up baking these first on their own at 275 Fahrenheit for probably about 20 minutes. You don't need a whole lot of time because you will be baking these again when you finish the piece. I'm baking the claws first because when I'm sculpting, I don't want to end up bumping them, and they're very thin and fragile, so if you lightly bump them, the clay is just going to come right off of the wire. So baking them first helps me not to mess them up while I'm working on the rest of the foot. Now I want to make my claws look kind of either like metal or glass or ice, so I have this nice glitter. It's actually made out of a type of glass, so it can handle being baked in the oven. So I'm going to dip all of my claws into this, and then we're going to bake the claws. After the claws have come out of the oven and have cooled to touch, I'm going to now start working on the bottom of the foot. So I'm going to cover the wire frame in a layer of clay and start sculpting kind of a pad texture to it. After you have the bottom of the foot finished, you're going to end up baking that as well for probably another 20 minutes, and then we can move on to the top of the feet. For the tops of the feet, I'm just going to be doing a bit of a scale texture, adding a bit of a bulk at the end of the toe, and then we'll probably be done. So everything at this point will end up going in the oven at 275 Fahrenheit for roughly about 55 minutes. After all of our clay pieces have cooled from baking, we can start moving on to painting. Now the main body of my Phoenix is a light blue, so I did my best to match that blue, and I'm going to paint all of the pieces blue. After that, we can start doing all the different details on top of that. Once the blue has dried, I'm going to paint the inside of the mouth. I'm using kind of an off black. I'm then going to go over the face and add some darker and lighter blues. I decided that the top of the face I want a light purple, so I'm going to go over that in different areas. I'll probably cover different spots of this up later, but right now I'm just going to paint the top of the head a purple. Now I'm going to go over the eyes with a off black, and then we'll start painting the other details once that's dried. Now for the beak, I wanted to give it a nice metallic look, so I'm going to be using a silver modeling paint. Now when I use my modeling paint, it's usually the last paint that I add to it. It takes a lot longer to dry than the acrylics, so I usually will do it last. After I'm done with the face, I'm going to move on to the feet. I'm basically doing the same thing as I did with the face. I'm going to paint it a blue, let that dry, and then I'm going to go over it with different colors to add details. And then like the Phoenix's beak, I want to go over the claws with the same modeling paint to give it a nice metally look. Now after all of my pieces were dried, I went over everything with a layer of resin. You can see they're nice and shiny right now. If you don't want to do this, you can use a varnish or a spray-on sealant. Okay, now that all of our clay pieces are finished, we can move on to finishing the body and putting everything together. So right here I have the fabric for the body. It's all sewn together. The back is open so that we can put stuffing and wire into it. And I'm going to be taking my measuring tape to measure for the wireframe. So I'm going to measure from the head down to the little stubby tail. That's going to be the spine. Now for the other measurement, I'm going to be needing the felt wings that we did, so I'm going to lay those out, measure those, measure down the back, and then down the leg. After bending the wires into a rough shape of the body, I'm going to take a thinner wire and wrap those wires together to create one frame. Now because I really didn't think through on making the wireframe and the feet together because they were on a wireframe themselves, I have to connect the wireframe of the foot to the wireframe of the body now. So I'm going to take a thinner wire and wrap these pieces together, creating a nice bond, and then we're going to go over that with glue to hold it into place. After we have the feet onto the frame, we're going to push the feet through the holes for the legs, and then we're going to glue the fabric for the legs around the feet. After After this, you'll end up hand sewing the back of the leg closed and then stuffing it lightly. After we have the feet finished, we're going to move on to attaching the tail. So I have some white fabric that I'm going to glue onto the base of the tail pattern that we made, and then we're going to glue this onto the wire frame and then sew around it. Next, we're going to move on to attaching the Phoenix's head to the frame. You'll notice that right now it's full of tinfoil from when we made it. I'm going to be taking my pliers and pulling all of this out. This is one reason you want to make sure that your clay is pretty thick over the tinfoil, because if you pull out the tinfoil and it's super thin, you're going to break your head. So after I got all my tinfoil out, I'm going to put some hot glue into the head, and then we're going to press the wire into that. Then we can take the fur for the neck and start gluing it around the head. After that's glued in place, you'll take a needle and thread and start sewing the back half of the neck and then stuffing it. So now your neck is pretty much done. After I finished sewing the neck, I went back and I glued some felt pieces to the face to add some extra detail to it. Now we're going to move on to adding the wings to the piece. So we're going to take that one blue piece that we had cut out for the top of the body, and we're going to sew it together at the very top. And then we're going to take some white fabric and we're going to glue the two pieces of the wings together. We're not going to go around to the other half because we still need to add the wire, so we're just going to do one half of it like this. Now we're going to take some hot glue and we're going to put that where we want our wire to go. After we've rested the wing onto the wire, we're going to take the rest of that white fabric and pull it over that and hold it into place until it dries. We can then go over and glue the rest of the fabric into place. So the last thing that I need to do is just stuff the rest of the body. I have a nice opening still for that. I'm going to fill the body with stuffing, and then we're just going to close this little area up. Okay guys, and here is our finished Phoenix. I'm loving the face. I'm really happy with the open beak idea. It looks like he's doing like a battle cry or something. I think that's really neat. Anyways, I'm going to have him up for sale in my Etsy shop, so if you guys are interested in buying him, check the links down below. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!